Hey guys, this is Rudy from Rudy Marta Photography, and today I want to talk to you about how to pick your engagement session location. First off, congratulations. Obviously, when it comes to being engaged, you get exposed to the wonderful world of wedding planning, and some people, they either get overwhelmed or they fall in love with it. Regardless of which side of the spectrum you're on, figuring out where you're going to take your pictures for your save the dates is a very important part as far as the style and the theme, and kind of giving your wedding guest a precursor of what's going to happen at your wedding day and the overall theme and style over there. So I want to go ahead and help you narrow down which location to go to. I have a link in the description below that goes ahead and lists engagement session locations in Orlando, Florida, and kind of the surrounding area around that. But let's go ahead and get into it. So tip number one, I feel like it's pretty obvious, but the place that your significant other proposed to you is kind of a natural place to go to. It feels comfortable. You're already familiar with the area. You know where to go, and there's a sentimental attachment to it. So there's a level of comfort that you just can't get from going to a random spot. You already created memories there, so you already know what to expect, and you feel that attachment to it already. If by any chance you got engaged outside of the United States, or far away, like on the other side of the United States, and you just can't make it there for the session, I would go ahead and recommend a sentimental location, which takes me to tip number two. When it comes to picking a sentimental location, you want to go to a place where you had your first kiss, or you had your first date, or where you first met. If you saw each other for the first time in the middle of walking down the street or something like that, there might be a sentimental attachment to that. Obviously, that might not be something that's true for everyone, but you can always also go to a place that you love to hang out. There are some people that just love, they love hanging out in gardens. They love hanging out in public and just cool places like downtown Winter Garden or Winter Park over at Park Ave. So there's a couple of options in regards to that. But that leads me towards tip number three. If you don't know which place to go to, if you can't find a spot that has a sentimental value to you, or you can't go to where your significant other proposed to you, then I would recommend going and finding a list of places, kind of like the one that I have in the description below, and dividing it up into two categories. You're going to have your nature or your natural locations, which are like gardens and parks. You can have pretty much anything that has a lot of greenery to it, fields, things like that. And then you have your urban area, which will go ahead and have, downtown Winter Park, or like a main street sort of feel, kind of like downtown Winter Garden. Park Avenue is really popular, but Lake Eola is another spot that's pretty popular as well. So you have a little bit of variety in regards to things. But when you start to separate the two into those two main categories, which is what I talk to our couples about, you kind of figure out, okay, I want this or I want that, and you start to envision things for yourself and your significant other. That goes ahead and takes me to tip number four. If you're going to a place that is owned by the city, the state, county, whatever it may be, you might need a permit in order to shoot there. If you're going to a place that's private, you might need a permit to shoot there as well. Now, when it comes to things that are government owned, they tend to be less expensive. So you're talking about, I don't know, 25, 50 bucks maybe at most, maybe 100, and that's pushing it. But if you're going into a private area, that's when you're talking about a couple $100. There are places like Sedona Mansion where we've had a session and it costs a couple $100 to get in. And if that's where you want to have your engagement session, then so be it. Just keep in mind that you might incur some charges for the permits to shoot there. That takes me to tip number five. When you're trying to pick a spot, always take into consideration what time of year it is. Now, here in Orlando, Florida, I feel like anybody that's a natural Floridian, we know that Disney is a place to avoid during the summer. It's packed, it's hot, it's uncomfortable, there's gonna be a bunch of people there. And the way that Marta and I shoot, we like to make things feel comfortable and almost like a private session in a sense in public, if that makes any sense. But it's something where it's sentimental, it's intimate, it's just you two, maybe a couple people walking around and anything like that, but you're avoiding the crowds. We want you to feel comfortable in your skin, and we want you to kind of forget that the world is around you. So I wouldn't recommend going to Disney in the middle of summer. Another example would be if you're going to Rollins College, you want to avoid going there throughout the school year or throughout the week. So it's better on the weekends, just because everybody's, you know, out of classes. There isn't that much going on, especially in the afternoon, or during winter break. I wouldn't go there during the summer too much, just because it could get a little hot. But that's just something to take into account. Different times of year, there are different levels of people in different locations. That goes in and takes me to tip number 6. Now, when you're planning everything, always take into consideration when the sunset is going to happen. Marta and I, the pictures that you see online, the pictures that you see on our Instagram, all that stuff is taken during what we call the golden hour. So photographer lingo, golden hour is essentially the 2 hours. It's not really an hour, it's hours, but it's the 2 hours before sunset. That's when the sun starts to go down a little bit. You start to feel a little bit more comfortable. It isn't as humid outside. It's not as hot, and the light becomes super soft. It gets that warm, natural glow that people like, and it's just overall a better experience. Photographers, they can control light a little bit better because it's coming in from one direction versus everywhere, and it also is softer on the skin and softer on just everything. Trust me, it looks better. Just look online. But that being said, if you're going to a place like, let's say, Lou Gardens right now has it's March, and there is a hard 5 o'clock close. Sunset is around 7:30-ish around this time of year, and by the time the gardens close, it's not even hitting that golden hours time slot, so the light starts to feel a little bit off, and just things don't look good. Now when you go to like I want to say state parks like Wekiwa Springs or Blue Springs, they tend to have a closing time with the sun, so they'll close at like 8 o'clock. And the cool thing about that is that as you're finishing up the session, all of a sudden it's just like, all right, cool, well, you know, it's closed, so let's get out of here, and you're done. It's wonderful because it lines up perfectly, and you get all that warmness and all that glow and everything like that we love in our pictures. I hope that those tips help you narrow down your list and figure out what works for you and what doesn't work for you. There's so many places in Orlando that you kind of just get lost, and we can really literally go anywhere. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. Obviously, I'll answer them whenever I can. If you like the video, give us a thumbs up. That helps out a lot, and subscribe to the channel. That way you'll find out when we post wedding tips and wedding advice, engagement tips and advice, and things like that. And don't forget to hit the little bell. That way you'll get every notification when we post it. But aside from that, follow us on Instagram at Rudy and Marta, and I will see you on the next time. Deuces.